Welcome to the Conant Show. Yeah, we have a good signal tonight, so it seems. And so let me get settled here because I don't have my guitar stand. And so, a few shows back, I was playing some electric guitar, kind of very serious rock and roll-y kind of thingy. And I said I was serious. And so I'm returning to that theme of being serious tonight. And before I get too deep into my thoughts and my show, it's just me tonight, guys. I'd like to always thank Paula Gloria Barton for engineering and helping me and all of us have a better experience on our public access TV station in Woodstock. And I'd like to thank the facility itself. It's a really great venue that we have here, and we need to keep it going. And hopefully, you viewers out there, if you're enjoying and getting educated with real uncensored TV production from the grassroots of your own community, you know, you might want to think about calling in. Is there a call in? Is there a way to call in?
679-7777.
It's 679-7777. And if I'm happy for any input, if you'd like to give a call through the show, if there's something that you piques your interest.
Can I say people can either relay the question or I can actually put them on air? 679-7777.
Right, and if you go on air with us, I think you have to turn the audio off on your television.
Right, definitely.
Because you will create a feedback loop, and that's kind of very unpleasant, makes it for tough broadcasting. So my serious conversation is about things that are happening not just to me and my partner, but also by extension our whole community. And this topic is a kind of a charged, emotionally charged topic, and for the purposes of respect of the situation, I'm going to be leaving names out, but I want to describe what's going on. And this is going on in Ulster County, in our community, and it has to do with truth. And I want to start out that, you know, I was wearing my T-shirt. I was gonna keep it, you know, just the red shirt here, you know, but it got cold. So we are moving into another season. We are moving into autumn, and oh yeah, solstice. Yeah. Happy solstice, all you pagans out there. Tomorrow, right? I think it's today. Oh, really? 21st or 22nd? Oh, okay, maybe, yeah, tomorrow. Well, we're there. We're there.
Pagans, call in.
Yes, sure. And yes, the red shirt. And red is symbolic in a thing called the medicine wheel. And it is a very ancient tradition, and the tradition that I was privileged to study is ancient Seneca, right here from New York State. And we learned from our elders in the oral tradition, and this is the oral tradition, through the medium of electricity and lenses and cameras. You know, that's what talk television is. This is how we share and learn and grow. And the red that I wanted to bring to you, I was thinking, okay, how can I bring this show, you know, to where I want to go tonight? And I was having a piece of pizza down at Catskill Mountain Pizza, you know, minutes ago, and I realized I was wearing red tonight, and a lot of it. I had to put my shirt on because it's cold. And red is a color that represents blood, and it's a female color, a feminine color, because the woman bleeds, and She brings life into the world, and it is also representative of the South in the four directions, in the cardinal directions. And it is one of the cardinal directions as the South, and the animal of the South is the porcupine. And the porcupine in the South teaches us lessons, and those are lessons for truth. And those lessons can be painful because of the pricks of the quill, and which draws blood. You see, everything's connected in this system of thinking. So I was thinking about that, and I realized, well, I didn't really realize it, I kind of had this cooking in my brain for a few weeks, that truth is of the essence. And when there is falsehoods, when there are lies, when there are untruths, a lot of damage can happen. And that damage can happen emotionally, and it can also happen spiritually, and it can happen physically. And in the world of human dynamics and people problems and places and behaviors, my confrontation with untruthful people has been brought to a head where my partner has been falsely accused of things, accosted in her own home, and the legal system, the criminal justice system, the police, all the tools, all the power tools of our society have been brought to bear on my partner in a most malicious and vindictive and really fraud-filled way. And when people are confronted with the awesome power that our society has through the courts, through the police, through the hospitals and doctors, through all of these dynamics, you know, we can really feel small and powerless. And I'm here to tell you we're not. We're not powerless. And the most single important thing I can impart upon you is that the truth stands. The truth stands solid. And you know, we encountered in our journey of dealing with aggressors and falsehoods and rumor and malicious designs. We've had to really analyze the whole situation from before the attack upon us happened, during, and now the after effects and all that's entailed. And one thing that came up in dealing with lawyers and public defenders and people's opinions about being in the situation in which we find ourselves is that they said that truth doesn't matter, which is astonishing to me because we live in, and I believe in the rule of law, and we live in a society of laws where the whole premise of our law is truth. And the maxim is truth and fact are sovereign in law. And that's kind of a big chunk to think about. And that's where I'm really searching now through the avenues of official channels, how to exercise law to defend our rights and to bring truth to bear on the wrongdoers. And it is a slow process, it's a painful process. And when the process has been initiated based on fraud, based on lies, it takes an extraordinary effort, intellectually and physically, to stop that train, to even slow that train down, the train of process. And what I want to talk about is how, process in our criminal justice system can take the back seat to the practice of law. So you have procedures and practice. And the thought here is that when procedure follows the practice of law, it's a good procedure. Because you have to have procedure, you have to have order, and things have to follow in a logical, provable way. But when you have procedures that deviate from the letter and spirit of the law to such an extent where it no longer is a practice of law but a practice of procedure, then you have problems. And one of the arguments that has been surfacing as we journey on this David and Goliath scenario here, is that the little guy is powerless when confronted with the powers that be, and that you have to shut up, do as you're told, and hope for the best. And when you're on the receiving end of being an innocent party of serious charges, that's anathema to your spirit, let me tell you. To be told by those who claim to practice law that truth does not matter and that it is nothing about truth, that the system doesn't work that way, that's not the real world. The way things really work is you just have to consider that either you're really guilty, mostly guilty, somewhere in the middle guilty, or less guilty, or a little bit guilty. Okay? You're never innocent. The practice of procedure in this scenario is that you're not innocent. You're guilty on a scale of 1 to 10, but you're not innocent. And you can't fight it. And there's no recourse but to accept the best that you'll get. And that, my friends, is error. And I have learned a lot in the past 10 months. I've always had my foot into legal thinking, mostly because of environmental and native rights issues, and having to deal with various agencies. Like when I was out in Western New York, I was part of a panel before the courts to discuss the environmental impacts of an ice dam on the Cattaraugus River, which is, the theory of this ice dam was to prohibit ice from building up and going off into the outflow of the river into the Lake Erie. And what the idea was is that this would prevent natural ice dams from building up in the outflow and flooding areas adjacent to the mouth of the river, so that developers could come in and build very expensive homes in this flood zone, this floodplain, that's always routinely inundated with water, and ice in the spring melt. And some of those environmental impacts included changing the temperature of the river valley because the ice would be held upriver from the outflow in the breeding grounds of the great blue heron. And if you've never seen a great blue heron, they're like feathered dinosaurs. They're incredible creatures, and they're very ancient, and they're very majestic creatures. And there's only a very few successful breeding grounds in New York State left for these creatures. And what I had learned in these proceedings is that a difference in temperature of merely a few degrees in a 2-week period, either too high or too low, will cause the eggs to die, and the chicks won't hatch, or they'll be severely damaged. And this is a real thing, and it's a true thing. And the system in this case worked because, as it turned out, that the developers were trying to encroach upon reservation territory, get the ice dam built, and then stick the community with the price tag of maintaining the silt buildup around the ice dam in the river. And there was no provisions for for fish ladders for the fish to migrate up and down the river. And we exposed a lot of untruth and a lot of falsehoods that were approved by the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers. And how that relates to my experience now is that was one of the educational things that in life that prepared me for today, which is that when you're dealing with a commercial court, and you might not know what that means, but any American town court, justice court they call them, is a commercial court. When you're dealing with the courts, they tend to not have a whole lot to do, and they get into a pattern of procedures that are convenient and work very nicely for them because it keeps things moving along and very tidy. But in that procedural mindset, the nuances of the human dynamic can be lost, and in our case, those dynamics were lost egregiously because assumptions are made. Assumptions being made like, you're guilty until proven innocent. Just because a prosecutor or a district attorney has decided to take on a complaint and pin you with it, this becomes procedurally for the lawyers and the judge involved a done deal. And what's really alarming about all of this is the privatization of our entire system. Our prison systems are privatized. And what does that mean? You have to look at this from a business hat point of view. And in my experience now, as compared to 30 years ago or 35 years ago now, in the Cattaraugus watershed, I didn't have the business hat on. I was more concerned about the impact on nature and animals, and the impact on the native community with developers surreptitiously taking their land and this kind of thing. I wasn't aware in those days that everything is a dollar sign, everything is a price tag. And even in a criminal justice situation, it's about the money. From the accusations are monetized, to the procedure itself is monetized. There's money being exchanged or taken on both sides of the prosecutorial side and the defense side, as well as all of the court fees and charges that go along with it. And this is an interesting thing, because when you are charged with a crime, that's what it means. It means, well, okay, there's a dollar amount, and when you go to the store to buy cornflakes, you are charged a dollar amount. Okay, I'm trying to connect why this language isn't so important for us to understand. And I have learned that in order to push back against charges, especially false charges, is you have to build them charges on your own. You have to build them back. You have to push back with counter charges. And you have to put a dollar amount on it. So where that brings me now is that I really can't talk in specifics because things are in action now. There's a lot of action happening, and the outcomes will probably be discussed in another show later on. And we can think about our rights in the meantime. And that is the single largest argument that I have in the defense of innocent people, is that almost invariably your right to due process and equal protection under the law is probably the biggest single most important right that gets violated right from the beginning of the whole process, the whole procedure. And if my rights are violated, everybody's rights are violated. If your rights are violated, my rights are violated. And why would I say something like that? Well, it has to do with this. It has to do with that, going back to the idea of procedures as opposed to the practice. Procedures of law, bringing you in, accusing you or charging you with something, and then determining how guilty you are. Not whether you're guilty or innocent, but are you a little bit guilty or a lot guilty, and then how much are you going to pay? And then how much are you going to pay? And this principle, I'm fast learning, is pretty much across the board in terms of almost any person that you bring before the court, the commercial court. And now we have to think about, what do you do? What do you do when you have no tools to push back against some kind of manipulation of your rights? Well, you have to go to school. You have to put your student hat on and start opening books, and the right kind of books, and talking to people, talking to teachers, talking to masters who know more than you do. And you have to be willing to do the work. And one of the things that I've learned very profoundly in the past 6, 8, 10 months is that in this scenario, it is about the paperwork. You have to do the paperwork. You have to learn the language. You have to know what things mean. If you don't know what words mean, and when those words are being exercised against you, you're at a great disadvantage. And you can very quickly find yourself agreeing to something or signing something that you have no idea what it really means and what its true impact will be upon you. And the worst thing that can happen is a rush to judgment. To be in a state of confusion, to be in a state of disinformation, making agreements that you don't understand but you think you do because you think you know what that means, when all the while the proceduralists, those who, all the actors, okay, there's a stage here, and the actors include, say, a defense attorney, a prosecutor, the judge, and so on. They act out a script, and that script has a predetermined ending. That is exactly the procedure that I'm talking about. That there's a predetermined ending, and you need to be aware that there are tools to interrupt a procedure like that. And that procedure largely is laziness. It is laziness on the part of all of the players because they don't want to do the work. They don't want to look up the laws. They don't want to apply the laws. What they want to do is get home by dinner time and get a paycheck at the end of the week. Because in all of these scenarios, money is involved. Money is exchanged. And the poor innocent person or victim of this procedural thing ends up paying in three ways, really. You pay out of pocket for the service of a lawyer who also gets paid whether you win or lose by the court. And then there is the aftermath of what has determined what's happened to you. You could end up in jail, and then that county jail or state jail or federal prison, they get money to lock you up. So there is, and since these are privatized systems, the jails, correctional facilities, these privatized systems have a vested interest in filling those cells. And at the kind of the beginning of that food chain is the police, and the police have a vested interest. And I'm going to tell you a story, and this is a true story, about my experience in 1984 Christmas night. So it would have been, or it would have been the day, perhaps the day after. I think it was the 26th of December 1984, and I was rehearsing and playing music with my friend Glenn down in Teaneck, New Jersey, and he had a conversation with me before I got in the car. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and I was going to go, it was about a 90-mile drive to Sharon, Connecticut from Teaneck. And he says, "Oh, by the way, George, be careful on the way home because their new laws just got passed and they're effective now in New Jersey." And I said, "Oh, okay, what's that?" And he goes, "Well, essentially the cops don't need much more than a wild hair to stop, search, and seize your car." "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, so, be careful, whatever you, going home, if there's, if you have anything in your car, you should, just be wise that the police can search your car without a warrant in New Jersey now, just on suspicion of anything." I said, "Wow, that's pretty draconian." And I didn't think anything of it until I'm on the entry ramp to Route 4, and I see a policeman behind me, and he stops me. And I asked him, "Well, what's wrong?" I had, everything was in order as far as I was concerned with the car. I had good insurance and good registration, and I keep my cars mechanically sound, and I'm good at that. And he said, "My license plate light was out." I had never heard that a license plate light was that important that they would bust you for it, but okay. And so he wrote up a ticket and said, "Well, take care of this right away, and we'll throw this, within 5 days, whatever." It was a warning ticket. I'd have to pay a fine if I didn't get proof that I had fixed it, being an out-of-state plate. And then he says to me a loaded question. by the way, is there anything else in the car we should know about? And then all the alarms go off in my head. Oh boy, these guys can just tear my car apart for any old reason. And I weighed it out in my head. Should I tell them about my 1939 Mossberg 22 policeman training rifle in my trunk? Or should I just say, no, everything's fine? And then I just thought about it real hard for 30 seconds, and I said, well, you know, officer, yeah, I have my rifle in my trunk. And within 5 minutes, there was 5 more police cars, great show and circus and pomp and circumstance. And now I am standing outside of my car, being handcuffed, and they put my rifle in a plastic bag and impounded my car, and off to the local jail I go. So I'm sitting in jail. Well, I should tell you a little more about that. I was, at this point, back and forth from Cattaraugus, and I was taking a little vacation during Christmas time to see my friends and family out east here. And I, of course, start adopting the culture a little bit, and I made a homemade arrow. So I had this handcrafted arrow on my dashboard, and this is just before they arrested me. And the second cop in question comes along, and he gloms onto it. You know, he reaches through my window and he goes, "What's this?" And he grabs my homemade arrow, and I said, I was really pulling his leg. I go, "I'm not going to be responsible for what happens to you for the way you're handling that. That's a ceremonial arrow." And he dropped it like it was radioactive waste. And he jumped away from the car, and he goes, "Oh, okay." So they left my arrow alone. And but moving right along to being in the police station, yeah, I'm fingerprinted, photographed, and then they bring me to a holding cell, and they bring me to the one that's all the way in the back, all the way in the back, and it is overflowing with feces and urine. And I balked. I was like a mule. I balked in the doorway. I said, "What, are you trying to give me cholera here? I'm not coming in here. I'm not staying in this cell. What's wrong with you guys?" And I hear some grumbling. "Oh, all right, put them in the first one." So they bring me back. They bring me back to the front of the first number of cells, and they put me in a clean one. And I was within, I'd say, 10 feet of an overhead speaker where all of the incoming calls were broadcast to the whole, what do they call that? Police station, right. So it comes on to about midnight, and a call comes in, and you hear this woman's voice, seemingly an older woman's voice. Granted, I'm a whole 24 years old. Older woman's voice come on. "Please help. I'm at 99 Stuyvesant Avenue. I've been stabbed. The man is still here. He's robbing my house, and I'm bleeding. Please help me. I'm at 99 Stuyvesant Avenue." I can remember it to this day, and the reason I can remember it to this day is because I had to listen to that tape over and over and over again while the sergeant or the lieutenant had 8 officers looking up every home, every place, every community I lived in my whole life to find something on me to make a gun charge stick. Meanwhile, this woman is begging for her life, 99 Stuyvesant Avenue, and they have one patrol car. Okay, so there's like 10 guys on duty, one patrol car going around looking for this house, and they keep calling in, "Where is it? What's the address? Where is it? What's the address?" And you could clearly hear the lady say 99 Stuyvesant Avenue. And I carry this with me my whole life because of what unfolded. They finally found the woman 6 a.m. in the morning, dead, in her kitchen, in a pool of blood. The assailant was long gone. And this lieutenant, all through the night, was yelling and screaming at his guys at the desk, "Can't you find anything on this guy?" And I got to tell you, folks, this is pre-internet, 1984. I don't have a record. I didn't even have speeding tickets yet. I'm clean. And these officers are complaining to their lieutenant, "Leave him alone. He's a nice guy. He's a good kid. He works with Indians. He's a musician. And they knew stuff about me. They were talking about me with such detail that I became alarmed at how much the machine can find out about you then when you don't have a record. And now I fast forward today, folks. What do you think they can find out about you now with all the access to information that there is? And who's picking up that information, and where is it being kept, and how do they log it, and all this kind of thing. So now I'm brought before the judge at my arraignment in the morning, and fortunately, before I went down there, the shift changed, and new cops came in, and this very tall, handsome, red-haired cop comes up to my cell, and he looks at the chart, that why I'm being held. He looks at me, looks at the chart, looks at me again, and he goes, "I've been in this business a long time. You are not a criminal. I know a criminal. They're fucking with you," is what he said. Pardon my language. And so he goes and reads the riot act to the lieutenant. What the heck are they doing? Let the kid go. Give him his gun back. All this kind of stuff. And that's not what happened. They took me before the judge. And my good friend Glenn, I got one phone call out. I told him what was going on. And Glenn and a couple other good friends showed up, and he bailed me out. $200 bail in those days. And I had to go through the process of the process. And the judge ultimately says to me, "We're going to give you probation for 6 months. I don't have to turn up or go anywhere. You just got to stay out of trouble. And we're keeping the gun. And after 6 months, we'll drop the charges. And then, in the meantime, you don't say anything to anybody about anything. Because if you make any trouble at all, I can put you behind bars for 1 year minimum mandatory sentencing on a gun charge in New Jersey." So he put the fear into me, and I walked out of that courtroom thinking about the lady who died in a pool of blood while these police officers, were ordered to find dirt on me, and they send one guy driving around the block saying that he can't find the lady until 6 in the morning. And this became a scandal in Teaneck because they didn't have crime like that. And as urban a community as is, it's still a small town. And it had become a huge controversy because the woman died 2 blocks away from the police station. And they couldn't find her. 2 blocks away from the police station, and they couldn't find her. And I've lived with this my whole life. This is the first time I've shared that story and went public with it. And I was very, very close to getting ensnared into their legal system. And I went through there 6 months. I didn't get in trouble. I went back down there, and I dealt with a public defender, and ultimately the public defender got my charges expunged. And he says, "Well, you don't have a record." I said, "Great." And one thing that I've learned out of that is that after I replaced my rifle with another rifle, and I went in and out of Canada and had to report it, guess what came up on their screen? Those charges were still there. It said expunged, but expunged is supposed to mean wiped away. You know, even if you are paying a lawyer to do that service of expunging your record, the record doesn't go away. I just thought you all should know that one too. So now we're looking at the scenario that my mate and partner is suffering, and I am suffering. Her family is suffering because she is in the jaws. I was lucky. They bit me, but they decided to let go. And now we are in a process of pushing back, and I've done some things, and I've done my homework, and I've done some paperwork, and I'm just getting started. And already, because I've pushed back by saying, I catch all of you guys in criminal activity, overriding our rights, overriding Laura's rights, overriding an innocent person's rights, I'm going to sue you and hold you liable for that. And this can apply to the lawyers, the probation department, the judge himself, the police, absolutely everybody, the prosecutor, the district attorney, is liable if they are found to be in violation of the law. And this is something that my partner could not at all fathom. I don't believe you, George. We're powerless. I said, no, you're not. If you prove them to be lying, falsehoods, fraud, overstepping their authority, they are liable because they are protecting the person who initiated the fraud in the first place, which is the accuser. So long as they keep protecting the accuser by pressing the charges against you to extract money from you, money or blood, you know, and if you're doing time in jail, that's blood. They're taking your life away. If they fine you, they're taking your money away. And if you have to pay for lawyers, they're taking your money away. Suddenly, after a few weeks of making statements and paperwork that I'm holding you all liable because I am a harmed party, I am a victim in this procedure, that what was told to us where truth doesn't matter starts to break down. The truth does matter. It matters a lot. But if you're not willing to stand on the truth, and if you're not willing to do the work to expose the lies, you're going to suffer for it. So this case that I've inserted myself in, that actually I'm affected by, as loss of income from loss of business. Our business was sabotaged. Our health has been compromised. Our relationship is under stress. And our future is uncertain. And the pursuit of happiness is put on hold. This is happening to our whole community. And I'm not the only one suffering from this particular situation. and neither is my partner. Other people in our community are also being adversely affected. You're not powerless. You're powerless if you agree to the procedure. And you're powerless if you fail yourself to find out the practice of law. And anyone can do it. It is a right. It is your right to look things up and find out what they mean. And that's why this red is so interesting to me, because it also symbolizes speaking the truth. And truth has to be entertained in all parts of our lives. We come into the world at 1 o'clock in the wheel, right? It's like a clock. We come into the world and we're learning the truth. And we learn the truth from our parents, from mommy and daddy. That's our first contact with the world, is our parents. And what our parents do to us and what we do to our children as parents in that formative time of their lives sets that young person, that new human being, on a trajectory in life. And if you're not a truthful person, if you're not honest with that child, then that child will have a deficiency of some kind or other as it becomes an adult. And then second, and this also, see, in this philosophy, it's all connected. So 1 o'clock is January, and there's a color, it's orange. And the orange represents the sun, which is love, and it's male energy, and the red that makes orange, yellow and red make orange. The red is the blood, and it's the female energy. So between the male and the female, you have learning the truth, which is our first dynamic in family relationships. Then you have at 2 o'clock is honoring the truth. And I'm just going to go quickly. At 3 o'clock, which is the east, is knowing the truth. 4 o'clock is seeing the truth. 5 o'clock, hearing the truth. And once you've gone through those senses of the truth, you then have to speak it. And then once you go on to 7 o'clock, which would be July, you're teaching and serving the truth. And then there's I'm a little weak on this at 8 o'clock, but moving on to living the truth. Oh, serving the truth. So you teach the truth, you serve the truth at 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock, you're living the truth. 10 o'clock, creativity, work of the hands, you're working in truth. 11 o'clock is sharing the truth. Magnetism, bringing it in, sharing it out. And at 12 o'clock is healing in truth, and that's the combination of everything working in harmony in the wheel. And the center, the 13th point, the center of your being, is where it all crystallizes, and that's your soul. That's the vibral core. And that's the soul of our culture and our society and the rule of law. The crystallization of the rule of law is the practice of law, is truth and fact, is sovereign. So we only got a few minutes left, and I'm going to play my guitar for you and give you something to chew on and think about. I hope you enjoyed my conversation tonight. Next week, my good friend Larry will be coming in, and we'll be revisiting a show that we didn't have good audio for. So we're redoing a show with Larry, and I hope you tune in for that. And I'll play a little guitar on the way out. And thank you, Paula, for engineering.
I put the equinox up there because I thought you did such a nice thing about the 12 points of the circle.
Yeah.
And it turns out we are in the equinox energy. According to Google, we didn't have to wait for any pagans to call in. At 10:21 a.m. tomorrow, September 22nd, is going to be the exact point of the fall equinox.
That's when the day is equal to the night.
Yeah.
That's so great. So thank you for watching the Conant Show. Hope I'm still in tune.